where this conclusion goes. There's a story I want to read that portrays this, what our reaction to God, how this story, this progression has played through after experiencing the book of Ecclesiastes. I thought this would be a good story. It's a story by Basil Mitchell, a philosopher of religion. And he constructed this story to talk about the existence of God and to argue for it and to set it in a narrative. But I want us to listen to it. This reminds me very much of Kohelet's experience with God. Here it goes. In a time of war in an occupied country, a member of the resistance meets a stranger one night who deeply impresses him. They spend that night together in conversation. The stranger tells the partisan that he himself is on their side. He is on the side of the resistance. Indeed, he is actually the commander of it. He is in charge of it. And he urges the partisan to have faith in him no matter what happens. The partisan is utterly convinced at that meeting of the stranger's sincerity and constancy, and he undertakes to trust him. They never meet in conditions of intimacy again. But sometimes the stranger is seen helping members of the resistance, and the partisan is grateful, and he says to his friends, "You see, he is on our side." But sometimes he is seen in the uniform of the police, who is handing over the patriots to the occupying power. On these occasions, his friends murmur against him, but the partisan still says, "Believe me, he is on our side." He still believes that, in spite of appearances, the stranger has not deceived him. Sometimes he asks the stranger for help, and he receives it. He has been thankful and grateful. But sometimes he asks, and he doesn't receive it. Then he says, "Well, the stranger knows best." Sometimes his friends, in exasperation, will say, "Well, what would he have to do for you to admit that you were wrong and that he is not on our side?" But the partisan refuses to answer. He will not consent to put the stranger to the test. And sometimes his friends complain, "Well, if that's what you mean by his being on our side, the sooner he goes over to the other side, the better." But he still believes. And so we must believe when it seems ridiculous to do so, when it's heavy, when it's not making sense, because of our trust that God is who he says he is. We remember what he's done in our life. Those were the two conclusions that Kohelet came to last week that we can review quickly. The first, he concluded in chapter 12, verse 1 with, "Remember your Creator." Remember your Creator. Remember what he's done for you, but remember that he is God and you're not. He decides who he is. We're not allowed to construct God in our own image. He constructs us in his. So we can't make God out to be the cosmic Santa Claus or the heavenly vending machine that just gives us what we want and stays out of our way the rest of the time. That is making a God in our image. And he resists that. That doesn't play out with how the rest of the world works. He is the Creator. He decides who he is and what he does. It's arrogant for us to think otherwise. But secondly, we don't just remember our Creator, but as Christians, as followers of Christ, we remember our Recreator. We mentioned last week that Paul writes about how Christ wipes away all old things. He makes all things new. He is our Recreator. And what the implications of this were is that he not only asks us to trust God, but by making us right with God, we now participate in the resistance. We can begin gaining ground for the kingdom, a kingdom that is of order, not disorder, that's not hell. We have a long way to go with that kingdom. But following after Christ doesn't make things easy for you. It doesn't give you a new house or improve your financial situation, necessarily. It allows you to take part, though, in truth, in the reality of things. What is going on behind the scenes. So we remember our Creator, we remember our Recreator, not so that the world makes sense, so that we can keep believing even though it doesn't. And since Ecclesiastes is about experiencing questions, instead of having all of our questions answered, which may be frustrating for a lot of us as we read the book, it doesn't seem to answer any questions. We like answers. We want our lives to be in these nice, neat little boxes. We think that's what Christianity offers us. These nice boxes that we can put everything in, and it makes life pretty and uncomplicated. But Ecclesiastes resists answers, simple answers at least. So I want to spend the rest of our time talking about our experience of the book. Kohelet is all about our observations, our experiences of the harsh realities of life and how God plays into that. So I've invited a couple of people to come and to share what they've learned through the series about what they've experienced about God and life in the midst of the series this summer. So first I'm going to have Julia come up and share, and then Aubrey will come up and share to conclude our time teaching tonight. So, Julia? I was supposed to do this earlier.
I'm a little nervous. I'm a lot nervous. In the middle of the summer, I'm on the blog team for Encounter, and I wrote this in third person. I wasn't even comfortable writing from behind a computer screen to put it in first person. And I entitled it Ridiculously Unreasonable because my life is. I was ever hopeful and ever mindful of prayer and God after being saved. I married a wonderful Christian man and have wonderful children whom I adore. Jason, my husband, and I, we pray together, we dream together. We call ourselves the Dream Team. If God was on our side, we could conquer this life together. So we were a lot of the time asking for God's wisdom and answers to our next dream and our next move. And each move, we thought we heard God's answer. We thought we heard affirmative, yes, this is the way we need to go. And now as I look around and I think, this is not what my life should look like when God says yes. My dreams have all but faded. They have not been fully realized, but they stick around to taunt me. I've been angry and depressed a lot of the time, even though it's masked by laughter and lies. I've been angry most of all. I've been angry at God. I yelled at him. I questioned his sovereignty. This is not the life I signed up for. This is not my dream. This is not what it means to follow God. This is not what it looks like. This was not part of my dreams. And what was a part of my plan? Well, we lost a house. We went through foreclosure. The risks we took to follow our dreams, they turned out to prove disastrous. We were barely able to afford the essentials for our family, behind on all of our bills, having to make hard decisions about what's important financially that somebody else, another family, may not have to make, like the decision to go to the hospital for care, or stitches, or broken foot, or a doctor's appointment. We had to decide what bills to pay and what not to pay. These decisions should be no-brainers, but because of where our dreams, the dreams we thought were God's dreams for us, taken us, we needed to ask these questions. And when there was some hope, when we thought, oh my goodness, there's some light at the end of this tunnel, it was taken back the next week. I felt like we were on a roller coaster ride of hopelessness. I've been reminded recently of Job because my life felt like hell. I didn't feel that joy was appropriate or even possible. How do you find joy in being one step away from homelessness?